So we are going to get started this evening. I'm so pleased to see so many folks here in person. Hello, folks on Zoom. Nice to have you zooming in with us. And just a real quick reminder for those Zoomers, please keep your mics muted so that, oh, you can't hear this? Keep your mic, not working well?
It's working.
It's working, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep your mics muted so that we don't hear background sounds, that type of thing. We will open things up for questions and answers later on. And we'll bring the mic around to our live audience, and we'll also, Michelle will also ask you if you have a question via Zoom. And, you know, we sent out I sent out an invite to some photographic groups as well as astronomical groups. If any of the folks from either an astronomical group or a photographic society is here in the audience, would you please raise your hand? Okay, so we've got a couple folks. Wonderful. How about Zoomers? Any Zoomers putting their little hand up if they know how to do that?
Or in the chat.
Or, okay, you could put something in the chat saying, yes, I'm from the,
We do have 2 raised hands and 1 thumbs up.
oh, okay, all right, great, terrific. We like them
Oh,
thumbs
2
up.
thumbs up.
Oh, yay, all right, we like that. Wonderful.
Oh, you can hear it from here. So, but it'll have pictures too.
You
I
know,
don't see how you can do it.
folks, Zoomers, please mute now. S'il vous plaît. All right. So I think we're going to get our slides done, our introductory slides. We have several things going on. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Nancy Howell. I am one of the board members of Western Cuyahoga Audubon. Michelle is another, Drina and Marianne. So we've got a number of folks here. So yay, yeah, that's me.
Oh, I gotta figure out this annotation. Does anyone know how to do that?
Oh,
Like,
you mean erase
yeah, 'cause
those?
that's still
Oh,
on the
don't worry
slide.
about it. Don't
But
worry about it.
maybe that
It's,
whole time.
I know, I know. I know it's an erase thing. It is. Oh, I
Oh.
see. Is there a little eraser? Go on
Okay,
down.
so I gotta
slip-
figure out where my mouse is
Okay.
and then get over here. I can't see my mouse. Oh, here it is. There we go. Okay.
Go down. I
So
think.
I'm gonna bring this
oh,
over here
Oh, okay.
and then
Oh, we wanted to help you.
I know, I'm sorry.
But it's fun to be able to draw on these, isn't it? There you go. Oh, look at that. Whoa. Ooh. What a happy audience. Here, give them some more booze. Next, please.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta get now the focus on. Sorry.
That's right. Okey doke. Well, I just wanted to mention a couple things that we're going to go through. First of all, welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about our Purple Martin project. If you haven't heard about that, I'll note the spring bird walk series that is going to be coming up, volunteer opportunities. And then we have some signups to either become a member or both, sign up for our e-newsletter. So next, please. I love the little photo of the sleepy mourning dove. Purple Martin Project. Again, I know a number of people have heard about it. It is in the newsletter. So we have partnered with the Cuyahoga County Fairgrounds to set up a Purple Martin colony. We are going to be installing the house and post stuff this spring. We do need volunteers that are going to be our landlords and maintain the colony. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, I do have a clipboard that I'm going to send around with a couple of other things to sign. So if you have an interest, sign up. It's just, for information, I can send you information. And then if you're like, I don't know if I can do that, that's okay too. So again, if you are interested, or you can reach me at nancyhowell@wcaudubon.org. Easy. Next, please. the Spring Bird Walk series. This has gone, I think this is its 92nd year, and I have not participated in all 92. Yes, so the last 3 Sundays in April and the first 3 Sundays of May is when the walks take place. Now, the 2 main walks that Western Cuyahoga has leaders are the Big Creek Reservation, the Lake at Lake Isaac, and talks a little bit about, where it is and how long, the length of time of the walk. And then the Rocky River Reservation near the Rocky River Nature Center, again, mentions information there too. But our list of all the walk locations which take place in Cuyahoga, Geauga, Lake, Lorain, Medina counties. I mean, it's huge. There's a lot of different places. And there's a couple of places that have walks. No, there's one place that has walks on the Saturday before these Sunday walks. So April 12th instead of the 13th, April 19th instead of the 20th, and that's River Styx Park in Medina County. Beautiful park, beautiful wildflowers. So it's really very, very cool to do one Saturday and maybe could do a different one on Sunday. So again, those will be on our website soon. Next, please. We have a couple of volunteer opportunities, hence me still holding on to this clipboard because there are 2 pages with the opportunities listed. The Parma Heights Earth Day in the Commons, which will take place on Saturday, April 26th from 1 to 4. It's very family oriented. And then the West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church Earth Fest 2025. And that is from 10 in the morning till 4. We'll have 2 shifts there. So we hope that maybe you're interested in signing up for one of those volunteer opportunities that's coming up. But we also need writers for our newsletter, somebody to help coordinate our volunteers, coordinate our education committee, and then fundraising and friend raising. So we just have lots and lots of opportunities for you to become involved. Really very little time each month is needed. So again, please contact me and I will give you some further information. Next, please. And then keep informed, as I mentioned, you can become a member and or sign up for our electronic newsletter, which comes out about once a week, sometimes once every other week. And I just love this photo that Patty Kellner took this past winter on the Christmas bird count. Look at that. Does that look like the Lake Erie shoreline and the river? No, it doesn't. It looks like somewhere along the ocean, but I just thought that was really, really pretty. Sorry. There are, and identify those birds in the sky. Yeah. All right. All righty. So next, please. And who do we have coming up next? Is Michelle. And I'm going to be sending around the clipboard. There are, like I say, there are 3 sheets. So we're started here and headed around.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking about our upcoming bird walks as well as how you can connect with us on social media. We have a second Saturday bird walk coming up this Saturday, and Kirtland Bird Club will be joining us. So please, join us as well. There'll be a nice big crowd. So February 8th, 9 a.m., and we meet at the Rocky River Nature Center between the upper and lower parking lots, and then take a couple hours to walk the Nature Center trails. Bill Dunninger, Dave Grosskemper, Ken Gober, and Al Rand are our leaders for that walk. So hope to see you this Saturday. We have the Tremont Towpath Urban Bird Walk. It's the 4th Saturday of every month except December. So this month it will be on February 22nd. Again, we meet at 9 a.m. at the Towpath Public Parking Lot on Abbey Avenue. Nancy Howell and Al Rand are our leaders for that walk. And then we have a field trip coming up. This is actually in March, but we won't have a speaker series meeting before, so I'm announcing it now. So March 1st, it's a Saturday at 9 a.m. We will be going to the 49th Street Outflow. Al Rand will be leading us on that walk, and we are going to meet at the parking lot near Bocce Park. And I have put a Google Maps pin to that parking lot, and you can find that pin at our calendar on our website, and we'll be sending out emails as well with that information. And then lastly, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're now on Blue Sky, dropped X, which was formerly Twitter. We weren't getting a lot of interaction there, so hopefully we'll see you all over on Blue Sky. Also, we're still on Instagram. Use hashtag WC Audubon if you post any bird pics so that I can see them. I would love that. And then YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of our online or Zoom programs are recorded and I put them on YouTube. So if you subscribe, you won't miss anything. All right, that's it for me. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks so much, Michelle. I heard a little applause for the dropping of the X and the joining of the Blue Sky. So how about that? All righty. Marianne Ramito, our Climate Watch Coordinator for Northeast Ohio, not just Cuyahoga County, all of Northeast Ohio.
That's right. And this one works better than that one does. We can at least hear this one in the back. Anyway, yes, I am the Climate Watch Coordinator. You can change to the next thing. And the Climate Watch is going on Climate Watch surveys are going on right now. They started in January 15th and they'll end February 15th. And you can bypass, go to the next slide, please.
Conference afterwards to find out more about what the two have this.
The Climate Watch is a survey that's started by the National Audubon Society. And in order to participate, all you got to do is contact me, and I can give you a square, which is 10 kilometers square. And then you pick out 12 points in each square, and you go and monitor each of these points for 5 minutes apiece. In the summertime, it's a whole lot more fun because the weather's better. The wintertime, it's a little cold. And this winter, we've kind of gotten really a lot of cold weather. But there's still time to go out and do a square if you wish. I have a couple of squares. Most of the ones I have, the west side of Cuyahoga County are kind of taken, but there's some on the east side of Cuyahoga County that can still be filled. And then there's some in the surrounding counties that if you wish to have a square, let me know. Take a picture of this slide here so that you can contact me. Next. And that's it.
All righty. Thank you so much, Marianne. Drina Nemes, our book discussion coordinator. We've had some fabulous books that we've gone through. So
They
Drina,
have been good, haven't
yes, they have been great.
Next slide, please. Yes, well, we started with 10 Birds That Changed the World, and Stephen Moss is supposed to be at the big week this year. And just 2 weeks ago, we discussed The Birds That Audubon Missed and found it to be an extremely interesting book. And then coming up April 29th, we're going to read The Big Year, A Tale of Man, Nature, and Fowl Obsession by Mark Mashik. And it is the story of 3 men and how they did a big year. Next slide, please. And you may have seen the movie. It is somewhat based on the book. At least there are 3 characters in the movie and 3 characters in the book. It is fun, and it really is a fun movie, and it's streaming on several places, or you can buy or rent it. The Cleveland Public Library does have a DVD. Next slide, please. I just wanted to put up this link again for a conversation with David Lindo when he interviewed Ken Kaufman about his book, The Birds That Audubon Missed. It's a really excellent interview. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to bring up, at our very first book discussion, September 2020, we discussed the book, The Other Audubon. And I bring that up too because Ken Kaufman in his book refers to the other Audubon as Roger Torrey Peterson, who is a fantastic artist. But we have this Ohioan, Genevieve Jones, who in the 19th century um, had gone to Philadelphia to a World's Fair and saw Audubon's paintings and was inspired. And so she decided, well, Audubon neglected nests and he neglected eggs. So that was her theme. And she created a wonderful outline and project. She was able to complete 5, and then she contracted typhoid fever and died, only age 29. But her family, so devoted to her, they continued the project, 68 different birds. So I understand that this is at the Natural History Museum of Cleveland. And we did have the author of this book, Joy Kaiser, who was the librarian there, is it, at the Natural History Museum. So Joy gave us a wonderful review of how she did her book and also of the book. Next slide, please. And so there's the link for the for that discussion and where all our other book discussions are. Then I just wanted to mention too, tomorrow night, Nova at 9 o'clock is going to have a program on birds today and how they descended from the dinosaurs. That looks really good. So, thank you. That is so cool looking.
All righty. So Amanda, let me get. Amanda Sabrowski is not here this evening. She usually can't make it on the first Tuesdays, but she's our coffee coordinator. And we have some information at the back table on Birds and Beans coffee, which we sell through our website. 4 times a year, we send in an order. And the coffee is bird friendly, which means that it's grown in a situation where the native trees are still shading the coffee plants. It's fair trade. The farmers are getting a living, a good wage. No pesticides are being used, so it is Smithsonian certified. And there's a lot of different varieties that you can choose from: whole bean, different grinds, dark roast, light roast, all different things. So again, it's very good. It is a little bit of a fundraiser for us. So again, if you're interested in this, again, you can hit our webpage or take a photo of this slide and learn a little bit more about the bird-friendly coffee that we sell. Next. All righty. So we do have a March speaker. All right. Our March speaker is going to be in person only, not Zoom. We don't have a Zoom situation, but and it's Gary Jerome, who's going to be speaking about only bird while I'm awake. Well, yeah, he's a naturalist. He's a writer. He's a musician. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So again, this is Tuesday, March 4th, a month from now, and at 7 o'clock right here. Sorry, folks, no Zoom for that particular evening. So be here. Next. And of course, this evening, I'm so pleased to introduce our speaker, Kathy Neugebauer, on her photographs. I have been in awe. She sends photographs to a lot of us, and I'm just like, she's better than the Webb telescope out there. Way better. I mean, and she's right in our backyard, or her backyard. But it's just really, really wonderful photos of exploring the hidden beauty of our night skies. Next, please. So after 30 years of bird watching and photographing nature, Kathy decided to pursue a new aspect of photography, the night sky. Since retiring as a pharmacist, Kathy says, I now have the time and resources to fully explore my fascination with the night sky. Over the last 4 years, her imaging has grown from using a DSLR, I'm not sure what that is, and camera lenses to more sophisticated equipment to capture deep sky images of nebula, galaxies, and other dark sky phenomena. The use of new hardware, software, and photo techniques allows her to bring out the exquisite beauty of our night skies. I think you will just absolutely love it. So let's give a warm welcome to Kathy Neugebauer.
DSLR means digital single lens reflex. It's an old term that isn't used a whole lot anymore. As Nancy mentioned, I started photography mostly with wildlife and birds and landscapes. Now it's hitting 40 years ago. So with retirement, and I wanted to try something new. My journey through astrophotography really started about 5 years ago when I took a workshop on how to photograph the Milky Way at Isle Royale National Park, which is in an island off the coast, or actually in the middle of Lake Superior. I was hooked, and I eventually moved on to learning the night sky in more detail and advancing from a standard camera and lens to more specialized astronomy equipment, which includes various telescopes, astro cameras, and equatorial mounts that track the night sky. My presentation tonight is to share with you this journey of discovery, from learning the night sky and progressing my photography to night sky landscapes and deep sky imaging. Next slide. So there are basically two ways to approach the viewing of the night sky, either visually or by photography. However, the first step to both methods is to learn the movement of the night sky through the seasons. Next slide. So you really need to learn the basics first. I'll tell you, when I first went out on a trip to Isle Royale, and we're looking at the Milky Way, it's like, what direction is it? I don't know. Where do I look? Okay, so I've come a long way since then. Okay, so you need to learn the basics first and become familiar with the location and movement of stars and planets. And you do this by using either paper star maps, tons of books that are out there, especially software, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Or my favorite part was to start attending a star party of your local astronomy group. They're a wealth of information, especially if you walk in and you don't even know where the North Star is. They'll jump all over you to help you out. Many of these aids are free, next slide, and available to the internet. In a second. Let me. Paper star maps are great in giving an overall perspective of specific areas of the night sky. I look at these as road maps, kind of like the old paper maps that we used to use that we now use GPS devices. But these were great devices to start your journey into finding some of these. They're useful in what we call star hopping, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But they basically give you an idea where in the sky you're looking to find something. These could be physical maps, but now a lot of these are electronic. Go ahead, you can click on that. This particular is actually, can you move it the other way? Yeah, there you go. This I took out of one of the books I had that had a listing of all these star maps. And basically why I wanted to show you this is this constellation is blazing out there now. Unfortunately, since about the end of November, we've been almost in clear clouds the entire time. But to give you an idea, this star map shows one of the brightest areas of the winter sky. If you look out on a clear night, which hopefully we'll get to one of these nights, you will see in the south or southeastern sky the Orion constellation. This area of the sky was named after the Greek hunter Orion, but has many other names in other cultures. To me, this asterism, and an asterism is basically a grouping of stars in the sky that people put names to find them. One of the biggest ones that I think everybody's heard of is the Big Dipper. So you all know what that Big Dipper looks like. And that's called an asterism.
to me, this actually looks like an hourglass to me. So when I go out at night and look in the eastern to southeastern sky, I see this huge hourglass in the sky. Within this constellation are many objects, such as the Orion Nebula. And I'll just show you that briefly. The Orion Nebula is right here. And this is the belt star. A lot of people have heard of the Orion belt. And hanging from the middle star is where the Orion Nebula and also another nebula called the Running Man is. And it's in the belt star on which they call the sword that's hanging down from the belt star. Orion is one of the brightest nebulae visible to the naked eye. Up on the first guide star on here is this star here is the Horsehead Nebula and also the Flame Nebula. And if you move it down a little bit, you'll see this big star right here, Sirius. And Sirius was considered it's the dog star, and it's the brightest star in the winter sky right now. And this particular star was considered to be Orion's faithful companion, his dog. Okay. Okay, next slide. There you go. So go ahead and just go through this. There's 4 of them here. There's many software programs that are out there that will help you find a lot of this if you don't want to use paper maps, which a lot of people don't do anymore. I'm an old fogey and I like to look at star maps. But basically, all you need is your smartphone or tablet, and you can download a ton of programs that are available on the internet. Most of them are free. However, some they do charge extra if you want additional features. Why I like some of these, and I'll just mention a few that I use. You'll notice here that I've got a ton of programs just sitting here of all the different ones I use, and I actually got another page of these. The one that I use quite a bit of is the one that is called Sun Surveyor. And this is Sun Surveyor here. And the nice thing about Sun Surveyor is it gives you information. So it lets you know, you really need to know sunrise, sunset. And a lot of photographers like to know what's called the blue hour. The blue hour is a time of day right before it gets dark, where the lighting is just perfect for taking pictures. So based on the date and time and your location that it picks up off of your phone, the GPS location, it'll give you this information. In addition, if you're out doing night sky and you're doing shots of the Milky Way, there's a section in here that'll show you photo opportunities, and that tells you when it's totally dark, because the moon can be a problem when you're taking night sky pictures because it just washes out everything. So you want to find a time, if possible, that it's near total darkness. Also, the Milky Way has a center, and that center of the Milky Way is very bright, and that's what photographers like to take a lot of pictures of. Even though the Milky Way is across the sky all night, there's only certain times in the year that the center of the Milky Way stands out, and that happens to be during Milky Way season, which runs from May through about October. And it also tells you how it's oriented in the sky, because during the early spring months, it's basically an arc across the horizon that you can see very easily. In the winter months, or actually close to the fall, before you can't see the core anymore, it'll be standing straight up. So you use these features to try and determine the best types of photographs you want to take. Go ahead. Next slide. Yeah, do that again. There's a couple that'll make it a little easier. Oh yeah, there you go. There's also a couple programs that I use to help when I talked about star maps. These are apps called Stellarium and Sky Safari. And what these two do is you literally take your phone and you pull up these apps and you hold it up to the night sky, and it'll tell you exactly where you're at. I use this a lot to, when I'm getting ready to image, I need to find a bright star and be able to get focus on that star. So I just go, okay, I think I know what that star is. What is that up there? And I hold it up and boom, there it is. So those apps help a lot in determining that. You'll notice here that this is of the Andromeda galaxy that I've got pulled up here, and it'll tell you exactly in the night sky where it's at. These apps will also show you how high up in the sky it is. And they will also give you the top viewing objects that you may want to look at. This last section here, right here, is a program that is called Telescopius. And again, this is a free program, and you basically call up the item that you want. And this is great because it helps you determine how high up an object is in the sky and whether it's visible while you are imaging. It also tells you the best time to image and capture. You don't want to try and photograph an object that is not visible for the date and time. If you notice here on this particular item, this is again the Andromeda galaxy, it's at its highest peak in the sky at 90 degrees, but it's at 2:30 in the afternoon. So you're not going to be able to see that. You'll notice here that it falls below the horizon and then comes back up. But that happens during the time of when it's dark. So this isn't a real great target to try and image, especially when you're hauling all this equipment out and you go, whoops, this isn't going to work tonight. Next slide. This is another view from Telescopius, and this I use, like I said, this is one of the apps I use the most of. This right here is showing a nebula called NGC 7635, and every nebula, an object in the night sky has what they call a catalog number, and then they have common names that have been associated with it. This particular one is called the Bubble Nebula, and you notice there that it's outlined in this rectangle right here. What that represents is I took my largest telescope, which is an 8-inch telescope with a focal length of over 1,400 millimeters, and I can figure out if that telescope's big enough to take that picture. If I use my little guy that's up here, it would be about this big. It would be a little tiny speck. So that's the other thing that you have to do is figure out the best equipment to use. Next slide. In addition to the other thing that you need to worry about, especially here in Ohio, is our weather. As you know, it can change on a daily and on a weekly and on a hourly to minute basis. I've looked at these sky charts and these maps and looked a half hour later and it was clear outside, and I look again, I said, the clouds just rolled in. Okay. But anyway, these two apps, there's one called Clear Outside and Astrophotographer. They have cloud, temperature, and dew point charts for any day. These are especially useful because, especially the dew points, and they're used to determine if you need to run dew heaters on your optics. You can really mess up pictures if you go out and start taking pictures and all of a sudden all your lenses fog up. So this is great. There's tons of other free programs out on the internet to help you find things. And I actually have up here later, if you're interested, a listing of some of the programs I use and some that I don't use. Keep in mind that most of these are free, but sometimes they have more advanced settings in these, as you know, with most software, they're going to charge you for it. And they range in price from about $10 to $40. Some even have subscriptions that you can purchase to get more up-to-date data and more frequently than what they show here. Next slide. So ways to view the night sky. So once you get a handle on the objects in the night sky, the next step is more detailed viewing, either visually or by taking pictures. And a lot of us do both. Star hopping allows you to find a particular object for viewing based on star maps that I talked about. Others use go-to mounts that allow you to select an object in a star database and have the telescope move to that location. the programs that I showed you, the Stellarium and Sky Safari, can connect to your telescope mounts and move the telescope or slew it to a particular object in the night sky. With visual astronomy, there's what we call naked eye or binocular views. And these allow you to look up and see a constellation, a star cluster, if it's dark enough. Unfortunately, in our area, between the clouds and the light pollution, it gets a little challenging. There's also telescope views with various eyepieces that are used on telescopes for night viewing. Keep in mind that viewing is primarily in black and white, since the human eye cannot detect and perceive colors at low light intensities. So that's one of the reasons I went on and decided to do astrophotography. Next slide. Again, based on what you want to image will dictate what equipment you use to capture the picture. Landscape imaging is a great way to start your own personal journey, as I did. And this is how I started out. Oh, okay. With landscape imaging, it's usually taken with a regular camera. I used my birding camera and basically a wide angle and sometimes a telephoto lens, along with a tripod and a remote shutter release. Now, deep sky imaging can be a bit daunting based on the learning curve and the cost of equipment. But every journey has to start somewhere. So with deep sky imaging, these are long exposure images taken over multiple hours. And they use specialized deep sky object equipment. And this ranges from auto-guided tripods, mostly equatorial mounts, to follow the night sky. Because keep in mind that the sky isn't rotating, the Earth is rotating. So it has to be able to keep up with those stars or you get star trailing. Then there's the use of astro cameras for higher resolution pictures, but some people still use their regular DSLR cameras. In addition, there are guide scopes and guide cameras that help and prevent long exposure star trailing. And then you really get the bug and I want a bigger telescope. I want a bigger telescope. So you're hooked, you get a bigger telescope. And you'll see what I mean in a second. Okay, next slide. Okay, what I want to show you here is the difference between a visual and photographic images. This is an example of, again, the nebula photographed over many hours, and it's the Great Orion Nebula. With the right sky conditions, you can see detail in this nebula with binoculars and the naked eye. And you'll notice in the second picture here, that was kind of I know somebody took a picture, but it's to show you the difference between after hours of taking pictures and then stacking and processing the image is what the Orion Nebula looks on the top versus just looking through a telescope. Stacking, what this does is I typically take 3 to 5 minute exposures over 3 to 4 hours. So this is a long process. You don't just take 1 or 2 shots and you're done, especially with this deep sky photography. These files are then stacked with software and processed to bring out the colors captured by the camera. Stacking also helps to remove graininess of the photos and sharpen the images. Some photographers, and I'm really jealous, have their own observatories where they can image all night and over multiple nights. And they collect data over longer hours, and this really improves, the picture. With the weather here in Ohio, and since I haul my equipment to a site, I'm really limited on the number of hours I can photograph. As I mentioned earlier, about the catalogs. The catalogs are reference the astronomical images that are out there. A little bit of trivia is Charles Messier created the Messier catalog, starting with anything that has an M designation in the number, such as M42, which was Andromeda. And it contains 110 objects. These objects, believe it or not, were discovered in the late 1700s, the 1800s. No cameras. They were just looking through telescopes and drawing what they saw. There are many more catalogs out there. And when you see some of my, toward the end, see the outcome of all of this, many of them are referenced by their catalog numbers and their general names that everybody calls them. Okay, next slide. Visual and photographic viewing can also be affected by light pollution. And this is probably our biggest issue between all the satellites that are out there with, and the amount of LED lighting and all of that. So light pollution impacts our ability to get clear views of the night sky. Keep in mind that the darker the skies, the better the viewing and photography. There is a scale called the Bortle scale, which is a measurement of how dark the skies are in your area. You can also use special filters that can be added to your cameras and telescopes to filter out the wavelengths associated with light pollution. A lot of people won't go out and image when there's a full moon. I don't care. I go out anyway because we don't get a whole lot of imaging time here in Ohio. And there are special filters that you can put on your cameras that will help negate the wavelengths associated with light pollution. There's a website that you can go look at. It's called darksky.org. And what this is a website that certifies dark sky areas throughout the United States and other areas. To give you an idea, and they have to follow certain criteria in order to become a dark sky park. The closest one in our area is the Observatory Park in Cuyahoga County. I know I live close, but I don't have my passport handy and I don't go to the east side very often. So I haven't been there yet. But I have been to Headlands Park. It's near the Mackinac Bridge in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. The Keweenaw Dark Sky Park, too, is up in the UP of Michigan. And I'll be showing you some pictures of some of the Milky Way shots I took in these dark areas. There's a park called Cherry Springs State Park, and that's frequented a lot by the astronomy groups in this area because they take road trips up to this area because it's really dark up there too, especially in the summer. There's lots of certified dark sky parks in the western US, and quite a few of our national parks have been designated as dark sky parks. If you use that app that I showed you called Clear Outside, which is free, and it tells you, it shows you the temperature and the clouds and all of that. It will also, based on your GPS location, it'll tell you what your Bortle scale is. Next slide. One other thing I wanted to mention about light pollution is light pollution also has an impact not just on photography, but has been found to affect the nightly migration of birds, throwing them off course and potentially having lethal implications as hundreds of thousands of birds are killed annually by running into buildings. So again, it has more impact, not just on little old me doing night sky photography, but it really does have an impact on our animals. This shows the Bortle scale. And again, the degree of light pollution is measured by the Bortle scale. The Bortle scale ranges from 1, which is the darkest, to 8 and 9, which is the most polluted. Many of the pictures you will see here have been captured at Letha House Park in southwest Medina County. Even though it's not really considered a certified dark sky park, it is one of the darkest parks in our area for doing night sky observing. The Cuyahoga Astronomical Association has an observatory there, and it's used by members, and we also have star parties there that are sponsored by the Medina County Parks. So to give you a little idea here, I lost my pointer. There it is. Some of the shots you're going to see were taken in my front yard in Medina. And my front yard in Medina is a Bortle 6, which is right here. And it's considered a bright suburban sky. And you'll notice here, it tries to show you what the sky looks at different levels of the pollution. So you're seeing a little bit of the Milky Way and a little bit of stars, but not a whole lot. Now, Letha House is a Bortle 4. And that's about 20 minutes from my house. So it's fairly close, and it's considered a suburban and rural transition area. And you're seeing more stars and more of the Milky Way. I've taken quite a few pictures at Seedy Wildlife Refuge in the UP of Michigan, and that is listed as a Bortle 2 to 3. So we're getting darker and darker. Deal Island on the eastern shore of Maryland, and a lot of spots. I was at Cape May, and a few other spots are also listed between a Bortle 3 and sometime into a Bortle 2. One of the darkest ones in this area that I've been there 3 times and I want to go back again is Isle Royal out in the middle of Lake Superior. And that's somewhere between a 1 and a 2. I've literally been there and it gets dark and you can't move because you can't see your hand in front of your face. It's that dark. So it is just an amazing place to go and look at the skies. What I want to show you here, next slide, is a comparison of light pollution on an image from Bortle 6 and Bortle 3. Again, this is the image of the Flame and Horsehead Nebula found in the Orion Nebula. Total imaging time for both of these shots was 3 hours, and with the same telescope setup. But you can really see the difference on what it's able to capture. There's a lot more nebulosity showing up here around it, a lot more stars. And in general, there's a lot more data here that can be seen. This image was stretched a little bit so you could make out some of these images. One thing I do want to mention too is that even when photographing the night sky, you need to take the time and sit back in your chair and study the night sky. Enjoy the calm and vastness of our universe unfold before you in the dark. To me, that's the greatest thing, is just to sit out there and listen to the night creatures. And you can hear amazing things out there at night. It's amazing. I've been able to hear songbirds in the middle of the night calling, which really surprised me. I wasn't expecting to hear, sparrows and a bunch of other birds out there just singing away in the middle of the night, but they do it. And if you're really lucky, you might also hear the calls of birds during their spring and fall migrations, because the birds migrate at night, as you know, and they are very noisy. You can literally sit there and you could just hear them going across. So there's more out there than just capturing images. Okay, next slide. So let's talk telescopes. There's lots of different telescopes on the market that are manufactured. And a lot of these, which one you use is really based, again, on the targets that you're after. I'm only going to focus on a couple of them that I use. And really what really drives a lot of this is, first, your budget, because some of this stuff can get pretty expensive. Again, what you're viewing, and the actual size of the telescope and how much focal length you have and how much magnification that these are showing. The ones that I use are called the catadioptrics, which is this telescope here. And I'm showing this just so you see what the general overall view of this is. A little short stubby telescope. These use both lenses and mirrors. The refractors, and a lot of people, these are what people associate with what a telescope looks like. And refractors use lenses primarily. They use lenses. They can be very expensive because of the quality and type of lenses that they use. They're very good for photography. Then we have the reflectors. These guys. reflector. There's different types of reflectors. Basically, these just use mirrors. And these are considered light buffers because they can really, with all the bring in a lot of the light that's the ambient light. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. And on top of that, lately in the last few years, there's been, go ahead and hit the smart telescope. Has anybody seen any of these on advertised? These are little tiny telescopes, and I actually got one up here. A friend of mine does reviews for some of the companies that make them. And this happens to be a smart telescope. And this is the whole thing. What's nice about these is that these are all in one systems, and they take the complicated nature of astrophotography out of astrophotography by condensing the camera, the mount, and the telescope into one unit. They're normally powered by a smartphone or a tablet. These systems will stack in camera and allow you to see real-time images that are typically only seen after doing hours of post-processing on could be up to 100 pictures that you're processing. However, the images are not, at least right now, are not the same quality as images that are taken by the larger astronomy telescopes. But I suspect in the next few years they're going to be a lot better than what they are now. The capability of these have just skyrocketed in the last few years. They are much cheaper than these big setups that most of us use, and they're great for beginners who are just learning. A lot of the star parties now are starting to bring in these smart telescopes because they can set them up and they can see an image grow on screen as more and more pictures come in. I know how many times I have pictures, people come up to me at a star party and say, "Let me see your image." I go, "Well, you really can't see it because it's in the camera. I can show you one image, but it's not going to be, the views that you think it's going to be." Next slide. Okay, so this is kind of my lineup of equipment. On the left, you'll see a plain old camera with a wide angle lens, and attached to that is what they call a little star tracker. DSLRs with wide angle lenses, again, can capture auroras and star trails and Milky Way images. And again, all you need is a camera and a basic tripod, and you can just go out and have fun. The tracking mounts allow you to, for longer exposures, to prevent star trailing. Because typically, an untracked image, so you don't get star trailing, is limited to anywhere from 8 to 20 seconds. It isn't very long. It's based on your lens and the camera you use. So if there's a way to stop those stars from moving, you can take longer exposures. The second one up there is a small telescope, and I've got my mini red cat up here. You could look at afterwards. This is a fairly new acquisition that just came out a few months ago. This is a 174 millimeter telescope, so it's a very wide angle. I can use it to get Orion and some of the huge nebulas that are out there. In the past, I would just use a regular camera lens, but camera lenses and me and trying to focus in the dark don't get along very well. So this one is much easier to focus and take pictures. I also have this is called a Red Cat Mini, and that's the one I have up here on the table. It's also a Red Cat that's a 250 millimeter focal length lens. And that's used to get in that little smart sweet spot of the smaller, the big wide nebulas where you need a wide angle lens. Now keep in mind, when I do bird photography, I use a 400 millimeter lens. So again, this is much smaller than my telephoto lens I use for birding. Next up are the medium refractors, that black one that's there. It looks small, but it's big. It's not fully outstretched. It's probably about 3 to 4 feet long. It's a big telescope. This telescope has a focal length between 500 and 700 millimeters. And this allows me to capture closer galaxies and medium-sized nebula. And I got Big Bertha over here. And Big Bertha is a 8-inch telescope. They make bigger ones. They make a 9.5 and an 11 and they make a lot of sizes on these, but they get bigger and they get heavier and a lot more expensive. And they're used to capture distant galaxies and nebula. They have a very narrow field of view. You can also use that size telescope at its full focal length of over 2,000 millimeters to take pictures of the planets. I haven't tried that yet. It's a little different set of skills that you have to learn, and I'm still playing with this. This is my fairly new. I got this almost a year ago. But again, I haven't had it out as much as I would because of the blasted skies out there right now. Okay, next slide. I just wanted to show you kind of a basic setup, and they call this a basic setup for night sky imaging. And basically what you have here, the thing that, you know, they always say you need a foundation before you can start throwing things on the foundation. And the foundation is your basically your tripod and your what we call an equatorial mount. And that will guide and move everything around the night sky for you. This one is called the AM5, and it's fairly new. And attached to that then is your refractor. Refractors are usually a good bet to start off with because you have less problems with trying to focus it and other things. But that's why when I first started, I had a different mount, but I had the Red Cat 250 millimeter, which is a great one to start off with. In the last couple of years, I went to a device called the ASI Air Mini control computer. Some people might call this cheating, but when I first started out, you literally had to star hop, find a star in the sky, use one of these and point up to that star and try to get your camera and find that object. Sorry about that. And I know the first night I went out and was trying to find the Andromeda Galaxy, it took me 2 hours to get on that target. And now it takes me all of 5 seconds with this little device called the ASI Air. And basically what it does, it's a mini computer, and it controls the movement of the telescope, the settings for the guide scope, the camera, and the go-to functions that will move the camera and the whole mount to a specific area in the night sky. You could do this without the ASI Air, but it sure makes life a lot easier. And there's also free software, actually one called Nina, which I used originally, that kind of does the same thing, but you do have to have your own computer linked to it, a laptop. And then that gets you in a whole other set of issues trying to hook things up and get a laptop running in the dark. And to finish it all off, also remember you need here, you need your dew heaters. Dew heaters are just electrical strips that you put to control from developing dew on your optics, because this can kill a session at night when everything fogs up on you. And especially here in Ohio, you really need it. And then to finish it all up, you really need a good battery that you can attach all this equipment to and make sure that this battery is going to continue running for, maybe half the night in sometimes below freezing weather or, very warm weather in the summer. We having fun yet? Next slide. So this is kind of my typical imaging night, that what I do. Here's Big Bertha, and she's over at Letha House set up and ready to go in the parking lot with all her connections and cables and everything hooked up. And actually I got 2 batteries running on this one. So what you have to do even before you get out to your site is to determine the target to image and the telescope size to use. You gather all your equipment and accessories that you need for the night. I throw them in the car and I arrive at my imaging site at least an hour before sunset. So that's why I got that app that tells me when the sun's going to set, okay? You validate the latitude and longitude and other settings from all these apps that you have. And then you set up the telescope and the mount pointing north. And you do a polar alignment. A polar alignment is needed for all the software to figure out where you are in the night sky. So when it tries to find the image, the actual items that you want to photograph, it knows where to go. So then you find and fine focus on a bright star. You then find your target and you slew it or move your setups to that particular item in the sky. You focus and you start what we call the auto guiding part. And the auto guiding is the piece with a camera and a small telescope that keeps everything from star trailing. Then you validate the image sequence and you figure out how many minute exposures you're going to take. And typically I do, depending on what I'm shooting, can be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes 6 minutes. And I let that thing rip for 3 to 4 hours. So what do I do in the meantime? Well, that's when I look at other things in the night sky. I read a magazine, whatever. But you wait and you monitor all the exposures. Sometimes things can go haywire, a cloud rolls in, it messes up all of your guiding, and you got to turn everything off and start all over again. So you wait and you monitor the exposures, and then at the end of your sessions, you take some additional calibration frames, such as what they call flats and darks, which I really won't get into, but those are used primarily to help improve your post-processing of the pictures. Next one. So I got all these pictures. Some people can have up to hundreds of photos that they took. And each one of these files is usually 50 to 60 megabytes. So they're huge files. You haul them back home. And to me, this is the most challenging aspect of the astrophotography part. And the learning curve to master the software can be steep, but it's also based on the software you use. But basically, all the software does is it stacks the images. It takes all those images and it puts them on top of one another and stacks them together. It stretches these images. And then you do different things on them to touch them up and get your final image. There's lots of free software available to do this for the Mac and the PC. And I actually started with some free software. I used Deep Sky Stacker, and that's listed on that list if you're interested, and a program called Searle, which is a stacking and post-processing program. However, over the last 1.5 to 2 years, I actually went to 2 purchased software programs that I use. The quality of images coming out now are much better, but I use PixInsight, and I think a lot of you have heard the program Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. PixInsight is considered the premier software for processing deep sky images. This program is also used by NASA to process their images taken by Hubble and the James Webb Telescope. Next slide. Almost done. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what a basic image looks like. So I get a stacked image and I say, okay, everything's stacked. I'm ready to process it. I pull it into PixInsight, and what do I see? A totally black picture. Ain't nothing there. Actually, it's there, but what you have to do is you have to do what they call a histogram stretching to bring out the contrast. So hit it once. One more time. Okay. So this was an initial stretch, and you're starting to see what the image looks like. The nebulosity is coming out. You're seeing stars. Then the final images use various processing techniques in both PixInsight and Photoshop. Go ahead, do it again. And there's the final image. Now, when I first started doing this, I think the first time I processed an image in PixInsight, it took me 6 hours to get an image. Now I can do this in half hour, 45 minutes. Depending on the image, it could take an hour. Next slide. Okay. So as they say, practice makes perfect. This first image was taken about 5 years ago with my Red Cat 250 telescope and my birding camera. I was proud of this little sucker. As I said, it took me 2 hours to get on that target. I was out there all night beating my head up against the wall, but I got a picture. And I was really proud of this. Next slide. This second picture was taken with an astro camera, the same Red Cat telescope, but I had upgraded to PixInsight for post-processing and Adobe Photoshop. And every time a new update comes out for PixInsight and for Photoshop, you're learning new techniques all the time. I've actually taken a lot of my older pictures and reprocessed them, and I'm amazed. The data's there. It's just I couldn't get it out of the picture. Okay, next slide. So what I wanted to show you here, and this is a short time lapse that I did in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. In addition to single exposures, you can create star trails and time lapses. And I've got some star trails I'll show you in a bit as well. This time lapse shows 15-second exposures taken over 3 hours with an interval of 1 second between images. So I took probably over 300 images for this very short time lapse. It was taken in the UP of Michigan of the setting sun and the transit of the Milky Way across the evening sky. And then Photoshop was used to combine all the images and create the time lapse. Just hit the turn around. Yeah, go ahead. It's quick. Well, the clouds got in the way, but you get the gist of it. And there's the Milky Way going across. And that bright star to the left of the was actually was Jupiter in the night sky. Okay, so next you're going to see a video that I compiled on images taken over the last few years. Most of these images were taken in Medina County. Others were taken in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and other dark sky areas in Maryland and the East Coast. Images range from landscape to deep sky. You'll see a lot of nebulas in this presentation. And nebulas are basically clouds of gas and dust acting as a nursery for new stars. But I've got quite a few pictures of galaxies and wide field views of auroras, Milky Ways, and other objects. So enjoy. Go ahead. Kill the sound a little. here, these are all free. You can find these on the internet, but these are great because there's a website that has these available that you can download PDF, and it basically tells you what's in the sky for each month of the year. And I have a listing here of some of the software that look at some of this. Again, the best way for me was to start. Oh, the camera doesn't. Forget it. If, as I said, I have the sky maps here that you can download off the internet and some astronomy resources for websites. But in addition, you know, there's a lot here, but I've been at this for 5-6 years now. But I started with a basic camera, a wide angle lens, a tripod, and a remote release. And that's all you need is to start. And then it really hits you, and then you start buying all this equipment. Thanks for coming.
Wow. I almost started crying with those images. I just can't get enough of that stuff.
Any
Anyhow,
questions?
yeah.
Any
If
other
you have
questions?
a question, let me run the microphone to you so that the folks on Zoom can hear. Any questions here? Oh, okay.
Where is a good place to observe the aurora over Lake Erie?
Actually, that shot that I showed over Lake Erie, that was when we had a little bit of a storm that came. This was in October. I was over at Huntington Beach, and the whole beach area was full of people with cameras. So, but the thing is a lot of people think that they could just, especially here, go out and look at it and it's there. You need a camera because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to see anything. When the storm hit up this, you could see a little bit of green on it, and it popped up, and that was it. But the cameras will bring out those colors. The pictures you saw of the G5 storm, that was in May of last year, and we were going to McGee Marsh to go birding, and I heard this thing was going to hit, and I'm like, oh damn! So I'm out there at midnight when we got home, and I had people in from Maryland, and I set a camera up out of my back deck, and I just let that sucker run all night. And I went out early because it was supposed to rain, and I turned it off, but I did manage to get about a dozen shots of it blooming over, and that was one of the pictures from that. So yeah, you got to find the darkest spot, and because of our latitude here in Ohio, you need to go where you've got a clear view of the horizon, which would be right on Lake Erie. Sure.
Well, you are getting lots of love on the chat here. Everyone just thinks your photos are absolutely gorgeous. We did have someone ask, where is the Medina location? Rich Stevenson did put a link to that location in the chat. Thank you,
Oh,
Rich.
Yeah.
But then she also asks, are there decent Milky Way viewing locations in eastern and southeastern Ohio?
If you go to, there's a, what is the name of it? John Glenn Park down near Columbus. You might get some good shots down there. I haven't been south of Medina yet for pictures. I go further up north. I go to Upper Peninsula of Michigan because it's really dark up there.
Yeah, the nebulas, are they always out there? That's why they have the names, right?
Oh yeah, they're there all the time.
there.
It just depends on the time of year and when they're visible. Like the Orion Nebula, you can see it year round, but the best viewing time is in the winter because it's up, right when it gets dark. In the spring, and I know I was out one time and I watched Orion come up when I was doing pictures of a lunar eclipse, but it was like 4 o'clock in the morning and it's come up, right before sunrise. So, but they're there all the time. It's just a matter of when's the best time for viewing.
Anything else online? No other questions?
Rich is the guy from our astronomy group that he built his own observatory in his backyard. And he's in Medina County as well. And, so I spent some time out at his place and also at Letha House. part of it is the camaraderie that you build with the people that are out there that have like minds like you. Most people look at me and they go, "What are you doing? You're out how late?" And I said, and even Nancy's like, I tell them, I said, I may show up for a bird walk or I may not. If I'm up till 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm not showing up for a bird walk. So priorities here.
This is Linda Chen. I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm sorry. I don't know where the icon is, but I put a question in about what is an emission nebula. I'll silence now.
Oh, okay. Basically, there's what they call different types of nebulas and how the actual amount of light shows through. An emission nebula actually emits light. So again, those are star forming areas. So the stars are actively blowing off steam. They're blowing off all of this stuff. And what you see is light emitted from those stars. And a reflection nebula it's reflecting nearby light from a star, and it's not from that direct star. And then they have dark nebulas, and these are black against the starry sky. And there's also planetary nebulas, and planetary nebulas, I don't know where they came up with that name, but I think it's because most of them are round, and they thought they were planets in the beginning. Because keep in mind, when a lot of these things were discovered, they had no idea what they were looking at, let alone they just saw smudgy things in black and white. And they would draw pictures. The Andromeda Galaxy at one time, when it was first discovered, they thought it was a nebula. They had no idea it was a galaxy. So we've improved a lot over the last 100 or so years on our ability to view the night sky. And pictures have just gone crazy with digital. I can't imagine people using photographic plates and taking a picture and then having to go back and develop those plates. That was bad enough when we were, if anybody remembers, taking pictures with film that you couldn't see what you took. They could all be trashed, but maybe you got one image that turned out. So I can't imagine how they did this, way back when. But so the digital age of photography just blossomed with astrophotography once it came out.
All righty. Well, I know there's some folks here that probably want to come one-on-one and chat with you about the items that you have on the table, or just. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And we can, the lights here, they just are either on or off. That's no dimming. So sorry about that. But anyhow, thank you everyone here in the audience. Thank you Zoomers for joining in, for your questions. This will be on our YouTube page at some point once we get things edited. And so we hope that you'll enjoy, and again, come in to chat with Kathy and pick up some literature at our back table. And we really enjoyed having you here. Thank you so much. Careful going home, and don't look up while you're driving. Don't be like me while what's that bird over there? But thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.